The only way that we can solve the challenges that we see in the world today of violence in action, of violence in language, and violence in terms of the way that we treat other groups of people that appear to be different to ourselves, is to move inwards, to come to know ourselves, and to understand that deep within there is a center within each and every being which is completely peaceful, which is completely at ease, which feels complete and full. If we all come to know ourselves as this, it will be the end of world conflict, it will be the end of aggression, and it will be the embracing of a new era of peace and compassion and love in the world. In today's video, I'd like to try and explain what feels to me to be one of the most important acts of spiritual friendship that we can offer to ourselves. And according to yoga philosophy, why this is so important, and how not only does it help to shape our lives, but it also helps to shape the lives of all of those people around us and generally the world at large. So what is this great act of spiritual friendship that we can offer to ourselves? Well, through the practice of yoga and all of its limbs, the ultimate goal is to come to know ourselves at the deepest level. And yoga philosophy, according to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, tell us that at the deepest level we are Purusha, we are awareness, and we are consciousness. And it tells us that this awareness is unchanging and stable. And as a result of that, when we ground into that stable awareness, we feel full, we feel complete, we feel a sense of svasta, of balance, we feel a sense of shanti, a sense of peace. Unfortunately, most of the time, we have no knowledge or no experiential connection to this space of awareness that sits deep within us. As a result of that, we become enamored with the stuff of the mind, the thoughts, the narratives, the emotions, and so forth that pass through our bodies and through our minds. And we attach so much to those things that we lose sight of the fact that actually deeper than all of that is a very, very peaceful and stable place within us. The challenge is that when we connect or attach to this external world, the world of thought, the world of body, the world of circumstance around us, we are thrown into a world that is constantly changing. And as a result of our disconnection to our peaceful, stable nature at our very center, we continually try to strive to find ways of making permanent or stable that which is fundamentally impermanent and unstable. If you reflect on any circumstance in your life at this moment of time, whether it be a relationship with a fellow human being, whether it be your work situation, whether it be anything in relation to your health, the one thing that we know for sure is that none of these things ultimately are stable. Even if we have the best relationship in the world with someone, they may get ill, they may pass away, or they will pass away at some point. Even if we're in good health now, at some point as we get older, our health is going to decay. And so as a result of this, we are on an ever uphill battle to try to create stability and peace in an environment which is fundamentally changing and moving and shifting each and every moment of each and every day. As a result of that, what happens, and because of our disconnection from our true nature, this nature of stability and peace, we try to find it in the external world, and we distract ourselves into the external world more and more. And the more we seek and the more that we believe that this holiday or that relationship or this apartment or this house or this job or this pay packet or whatever it might be will be the answer to finding stability and peace, the more we realize that actually none of these things will ever truly bring us peace. As a result of that, we find ourselves on a never-ending merry-go-round of tail chasing, of trying to put circumstances in place that will allow us to be peaceful. But yoga tells us fundamentally that the sooner we realize that nothing in the external world will bring us that stability, and the sooner that we prioritize getting to know Purusha, or getting to know the consciousness that lies within that is stable and peaceful, the sooner we will find that we will actually arrive in a place of much more stable peacefulness within our own life experience. Now, when you project this out into the world today, and we see the amount of violence that is being perpetrated, not just physical violence, but we see the amount of violence that is being perpetuated through language, through government policy, through the othering of others, and essentially through the discrimination of different groups of people just because maybe they act or behave or look slightly different to what is apparently the norm. We can see that there is a great deal of suffering in the world today. This is going on as a result of people being disconnected from their true nature. It is a spiritual crisis. That is to say that because we are disconnected from our true nature as peaceful, stable beings, as awareness, we try to create circumstances in society around us which we think will bring us protection. But in doing so, in order to block some people out of our community, we cause harm. In order to try to stabilize our own environment, or for example, to have enough money for our own needs or wants or desires, as a result of having an overinflated sense of what we need in the world, we end up stealing in many ways from other people who have less. And so as a result of trying to protect our limited identities and our ego selves, we might say, we end up pillaging the world in the name of our own security, which the Yoga Sutras and Yoga philosophy tell us that it simply cannot be found in the world of change. So this really, if we begin to look into the world, we can see is the cause of so many of the challenges we see in the world today. But the challenge is that when there is a spiritual-sized hole in our heart space, a God-sized hole in our heart space, there is nothing finite that can satiate the desire for that connection to something greater. And so therefore, no matter how much we consume, how much we own, how much we buy, there is still a sense of lacking. And we can see that as a result of our own internal disconnection, we overconsume generally as a mass populace, which drives a usage of resources at an unsustainable level, which drives a fantastical drive towards growth in companies and businesses and wealth accumulation. That means that we live out of kilter with our environment, and that actually we create great disparities of wealth between ourselves and others. And that is why we can see, for example, that even people who have billions and billions of dollars still seem to be motivated to have more and more power and to make more and more money. If the answer was having a certain amount of wealth would lead us to feel peaceful and calm, then most people would stop at a certain level. So what we can see is in the microcosm of the individual, when we are disconnected from this central place of awareness that is full and complete, it causes us to strive to buy and acquire to fill that gap. And as a result of billions and billions of people around the world, all with this spiritual disconnection, and all needing to try to play the game of acquiring things externally to try to make themselves feel better, we end up with a mass depletion of resources. And as a result of that, we witness the ecological and environmental decay that is so clearly in play all around us today. Similarly, we see it in our politics. We see it in governments coming to power who have perhaps what we might call very, very inhumane policies. They may be enacting things and doing them in ways that feel that they aren't compassionate, or feel that they're not really explaining to people who may be affected by changes why they're doing it and how those people will still be taken care of. And this again comes from the play of ego. It comes from the idea that somehow we can create stability amongst our group, whatever that means, or people that appear to be similar to ourselves, and we lock out everyone else, then somehow we can find security. But the reality is, as we're seeing all around the world today, very sadly, is that when we try to push out certain groups of people, when we denigrate people's rights as human beings, and when we believe that certain groups of people are inferior to other groups, we cause a huge amount of pain and suffering in those groups, and ultimately wars which are perpetrated against those groups cause death and suffering and destruction, which lasts for generations and generations. So I said at the beginning, what is the most friendly thing that we can do for ourselves? And therefore, what is the most friendly thing that we can do for the world today? It is nothing less than coming to know ourselves. Because if each of us on an individual level can come to know ourselves as awareness, as per the Yoga Sutras, to know a space within us that is deeply peaceful and deeply content and unaffected by the content of experience going on around us. Imagine if more and more people in the world were able to wake up to that reality. They would no longer need to defend finite views of themselves. They would no longer need to defend finite opinions or other people just because they appear to be different. We would truly be able to accept and move into oneness with our common humanity, and we would be able to let go of the aggression and the violence which is so endemic in our world today. The practice of yoga, therefore, is nothing less than finding peace, and for all beings of the world to find that peace. Unfortunately, today, when we look around, that we see, unfortunately, that many of the leaders of the world, many of the great politicians and leaders that we see, none of them perhaps have this type of spiritual practice. None of them pause during the day. None of them really think about how they go inwards to know themselves at the spiritual level. And many of the great masters always said that unless you have deep spirituality at the level of government, at the level of leadership, then it becomes very, very difficult for us to get rid of these policies and practices at governmental level, which cause so much pain and suffering. So that is why today, everyone, I'd love to encourage you and all beings in your life to really see if you can move on this path towards inner awareness and coming to know ourselves as that which is beyond the mind, that which is beyond the body, that which is beyond the breath, to know a space within each one of us that is peaceful and still and calm. This is the way to peace. It is a possibility for us to move in this direction. And therefore, I encourage each and every one of you, step by step, moment by moment, day by day, to walk on this path. As always, thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Om Shanti.